The Internet of almost everything calls for the cybersecurity of everything too, including the one of boards. In general, COVID-19 has accentuated the need for members to embrace the digital wave without further delay. Every 2 years, we partner up with l'Institut Luxembourgeois d'Administrateurs to put together a survey that assesses the governance trends. To the ones who participated in the survey, cybersecurity remains the main area of risk. Current times require them to be more and more aware of security issues and reflect on, for instance, the risk of reading emails in public areas or sending confidential data in an unprotected form. Furthermore, the call for board members to set up the cybersecurity tongue and empower the CISO or CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, is getting louder. This episode revolves precisely around that. Koen Maris, our cybersecurity leader, and Mike Delano, PwC Luxembourg partner and ELA Fund Committee Chairman, are our guests. Let's go.
Hello.
Hello. I have a question, Mike.
Tell me.
So I would say Delano.
Delano, I mean, in Europe I've gotten Delano.
But it's Delano.
Mike Delano.
Okay.
Delano.
Okay.
Yeah. Not like the president, like FDR, right? So just Delano.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for being here. For all our audience, we have been chasing these two guys for weeks, Carla.
That's true.
Super popular.
Super popular. And we managed to be together today.
Yes.
So let's start with the basics. Like the first question is always the basic.
Yes. Shall I start?
Please.
Okay, because the basics are always very helpful, right? So let's start to give some context to our listeners. So to Mike, can you explain what the Luxembourg Fund Government Surveys is all about and how it came to life?
Sure. So it's a survey that we've run jointly for the past number of years. I think it started in 2003, so before me. And this year is the 10th edition of the survey. It's something we do every 2 years. Well, we've started to do every 2 years because to do the math, it's not going to work. But it is intended to cover the trends in governance from a fund perspective. And so the entities that it covers is UCITS, management companies, super management companies, AIFs, so also alternatives funds, and AIFMs, so those different entities. And this year we've had, or in the 2020 edition, which is the latest edition, we had 122 responses. So, a really good number of responses.
Very good sample.
For a voluntary survey, it is very good, and it has developed a bit of a reputation that boards like it because it does show them the trends in governance and sort of where it's gone, and boards are able to benchmark themselves versus their peers.
Absolutely, absolutely. And why is Koen Maris today with us? Is because there is a big chunk of the survey about cybersecurity, which is almost the hottest topic nowadays. What do you think, Koen?
Oh, of course, a lot accelerated due to COVID. I think it opened the window of opportunity towards boards and executive management. I hope it remains open for quite some time now, because I'm afraid that if COVID slips away of the mind, that cybersecurity also slips away of the agendas. And that's my worry for today and the future. But at the moment, we get some attention.
So at the moment, you have lots of work, and we expect you to have more work for the coming 5 years.
It's not that I beg for work, but I think we have a strong dependency on technology, and inherently on technology we have cybersecurity risks, so we need to be aware about them and protect ourselves, society, and also the organizations.
Absolutely.
So maybe, Mike, the other very basic question, so what is fund governance?
So the basic question, I get the basic question.
That's super
great.
basic.
You can give Koen the hard questions.
Wait a bit, because the tough ones are coming.
Okay, I won't get too excited. So fund governance in and of itself, so that it's not a sort of a tangible thing that you can touch. There are multiple different people that are involved in fund governance, but if you look at it from a pure fund perspective, the ultimate governing body is the board of directors. So it's the board of directors of the fund, or if it's an FCP, to get technical, it's the management company. So they would be looked to as the governing body of the funds. But you do have multiple people that are involved in the overall governance of a fund, if that answers your question.
It does.
It does. It does. I read the entire. I promise the fund governance
Good work.
this year. I did, and it was interesting. There are also
Yes.
things about because the next question is about the trends.
Exactly. You already mentioned one, which is
yes.
cybersecurity, but maybe, Mike, you had other two key trends from this year's edition that you'd like to highlight.
No, I just want to talk about cybersecurity.
Really?
No, so I mean,
I know
think-
Koen would be happy about
Yeah,
that.
he paid me quite well to say that. So there was nothing. I don't want to say it's boring this year, but there was nothing overly surprising this year in terms of the trends. I think one of the things we did see, because the last survey, 18698, so the substance circular was released right at the end of the gathering of all the data for the last survey, so it didn't really have any impact. This year we really saw what 18698 did to the overall governance framework in terms of oversight of delegates, et cetera, et cetera. So we saw a lot of changes there. And one of the things, and again, not just because we're talking about cyber today, so there's one question that we've asked consistently for the past at least 4 or 5 surveys, so probably for the last 10 plus years, is what are the top 5 areas that should be on your agenda for the next 12 to 18 months? And consistently it's risk management, it's regulatory, it's governance, etc. This year, and it's an open list, so we don't just give 5. I think there's 12 or 15 different categories. Cybersecurity was number 5 this year, right? So, and it hadn't made
It's
the list
getting
at
higher.
all. So I
Yeah.
think from an attention level at the board, it is certainly moving up the agenda.
May I guess ESG can be one or the second, third position? or
ESG
something?
is in there, yeah.
It's in
So
there.
ESG is in there from a product perspective, oversight, ability to distribute once the rules are changing. But certainly, I think COVID. I think Koen is right from COVID perspective, or because of COVID, it's sort of accelerated, or maybe has brought it more forward into people's minds, the risks, cyber risks, because we're all working remotely, we're not working in the office, and cyber criminals know that, and they take advantage of it.
Of course.
Now, cybersecurity governance. Do you have a question about that?
No, that's your turn now.
It's my turn.
Yes.
Okay, let's go. So this is the survey was about governance. Now there is something new or something that came out on cybersecurity governance, like new practices.
There was no new practices, but we saw definitely an increase. So I went back as I was preparing for this. I went back and looked at what we had asked in 2018. We saw definitely an increase in the amount of training that boards are taking. So both trainings that are provided by the board, and then on a personal perspective. So directors educating themselves on cybersecurity. One key thing, and we can debate whether or not this actually makes sense, or it covers, is the there was one point in there around do you feel you as a board received adequate reporting, right? 2018, roughly 80% of boards said no. Now we have 28. So I think that there may have been an increase in what's reported to boards. Maybe boards have been asking for more information over the past couple of years. But does that? I guess it really depends on what's being reported to the boards. Does it adequately address the risks? And particularly for a fund, there's multiple different service providers involved. So if you have a normal company, you can ask the CISO. I'm sure Koen will talk about that. You can ask the CISO, okay, what's going on with the organization? How are we controlling it? But for a fund, there's multiple different people involved. So who do you ask? I think that's definitely one of the challenges that boards are dealing with now.
So 28% of boards said that they get more information, more reports.
Said that
than
they
before.
don't receive adequate
don't.
reporting.
Sufficient
Yeah.
reporting.
So, but that's gone down. Again, it's all from a sample perspective.
Okay.
80% in 2018 of boards reported that they didn't feel that they received adequate reporting.
80%,
80,
but
yeah.
that's a very
Yeah, it's quite a high number.
It's
So from that perspective, it's gotten better. We're seeing more boards
Absolutely.
taking on some training.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Koen.
Yes, are you ready?
Sure.
So, as our super cybersecurity leader, what do you make of these results? What are your thoughts?
I'm not surprised, to be honest. It stems me positive to see that from 80% of the people not receiving reporting on cyber, and now it drops down to 28. That is positive, of course. I agree with Michael. Yeah, what has been reported or what is being reported, that's of course a big debate because that's not so easy to answer on. It also confirms a study I did myself in 2014 where board said to me, we are aware about cybersecurity, but we're not getting reporting because executives are blocking the reporting line. We never hear or see the CISO. We see also that people on middle and senior management report up, but it doesn't get to the board, which is, of course, a problem. And that is in any type of organizations, not just in fund boards. That is, of course, still a negative point. What I also read in the survey is the boards state, okay, we see or speak with the CISO periodically. Yeah, that can be once a year. I always get that remark. Yeah, we speak with the CISO on a regular basis, and then when you dig into the details, it's once a year. Of course, it's very regular, but not enough, unfortunately. That is, of course, not the right answer to give. And in addition to that is, I also read that they don't know or there is no CISO. So I wonder who is the CISO, and I understand the complexity of the organizations in the fund industry, but still there must be somebody on a regular basis, either being the CISO or a non-executive director or somebody else, an expert, that advises the board on how to move on, and that is still something I don't see enough.
And why do you think this blockage happened? What is the intention behind blocking?
I think we first of all, but that's a long debate, we need to understand how we look at our IT environment. If our IT is something that is a supporting asset for the company, is it an innovator or let's say a business enabler or not? That, depending on how you position your IT, it becomes a cost or an enabler. And if you're full in the cost basket, well, you don't get attention from the board because you're in short a liability to the company.
Okay.
So the question is how to make the board see that IT is an enabler.
Well, yeah,
or the challenge.
That's of course. I don't think you need to convince the board. You need to convince the executive management that IT is the lifeblood or information, and especially digital information, is the lifeblood of your organization. And if you're not able to understand that, I don't think you will survive in the upcoming years as a C-level. That will be very difficult. So if you don't understand that today, you will get into trouble, that's for sure. Companies need to understand and fully embrace the idea that my tomorrow is in the digital space. And inherently to that, I need to take cyber seriously, because if there's no digital space, I'm out of business.
And that answered the sixth question.
True. So thank you.
It was about how to gain better understanding.
And actually, the other question as well, the seventh one, which was about the
Mike as well.
Yeah,
it was referring to this 28% of boards not receiving sufficient reports. And actually, the question was, why do you think what's the reason for this? That I guess is already answered.
Yes, I don't know if Koen, you want to say something about it.
No, I think we explained that. Now there are many reasons, and if I go away from the research I did and I drill down to the fund industry, again, it's the complexity of the organization. From whom should they receive reporting? It can be, sometimes it's the regulator that reports, or a regulatory body. Sometimes it's a supplier that reports on what's happening in the field. We call it threat intelligence. Those are reports that are interesting for boards. Then they know that there are specific sectors in the industry that are targeted at the moment, for example. But also, is the risk officer reporting something on cyber? Because cyber is in the second line of defense often, or the CISO is. You should have a risk report at least covering those aspects. And I don't think that's done enough.
And if there is only one strategic thing you suggest the board to implement to be more cyber risk shielded, what would that be?
That is almost impossible to answer. There's no
I'm asking this to the cybersecurity expert. He, of course, would tell me there is not enough.
Well,
it's going to be very, very expensive.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we can do it, that as well. But no, I think there's no silver bullet answer. And the problem is that people see security or cyber as something very narrow. But it's like going to a dealership, a car dealership, and you tell the salesman, I need a car. So that's what you ask me. I need a car, Koen. Okay, and of course, then I have to start asking questions. How many wheels do you need? How many doors do you need? What kind of engine? And of course, I know it's very annoying. If there is one thing we need to do in the future, is focus more on the endpoints. And the endpoints is your laptop, your tablet, your phone, whatever, also a server. Stop thinking about what we call perimeter security, because we still have the idea to build a virtual castle in our IT environment. There's no more castle. It's gone. We move to cloud or whatever. We don't know where the network stops anymore. So the only control we have is on the device that is the closest to the user. That's where the information.
So do you apologize me for such a silly question?
There are only stupid answers.
Thank you. Go Carla, ahead with the next one.
Let's talk about the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, and about the role nowadays. I mean, you've mentioned, both of you, already a little bit about it. But do you think that boards get his or her role right, or there's still a need for more empowerment? Or, well, as you mentioned, there is a need to have a CISO, at least.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody engaged by the own organization. It can be somebody external doing work on a regular basis. But there needs to be somebody taking the responsibility in the insurance process that security is taken seriously and is also adequately implemented. And that's where the problem lies. We see a lot of CISOs that don't have a mandate in taking a decision. They don't have a real budget, because the budget is allocated somewhere in IT. Although the CISO should be more closely to risk than IT, it should never be in IT, because we are imposing controls on IT. And if they have to decide, they will not implement the controls because they're not very budget friendly. So we need to attribute budgets, resources, and then we can really discuss about the CISO. But we definitely need somebody taking up the responsibility on a C-level.
And I think if you look at it from a funds perspective, probably the easiest position it would be, and I apologize to all my management company friends out there, but it's probably somebody that sits at the management company level, right? Because that's the key, the main delegate of a fund board. They're delegating a lot of tasks or responsibilities out to, I'll say tasks, not responsibilities, because you can't delegate responsibility. They're delegating tasks to different parties. So you have, fund admin, TA, depository is separate, so that's not depository, distribution, etc. So there's a lot of different service providers that are overseen by the management company. So if somebody at the management company would oversee what they have in their own systems, and then at least from a risk perspective, look and see, okay, how is a fund administrator controlling their data and the flows and who has access, etc. Mm-hmm. And then, going down the line of looking at the different service providers from their, again, going back to 18698, oversight of your delegates, that should be a part of the function that's handled by a management company, is also from an information security perspective, how is that being controlled? And I think that person then at the management company level should then be reporting back to the board what it is they've done and the results of the program that they've carried out.
There you have it. That's a model. That's a model suggested by Mike.
But that's true. It highlights another problem. It's the interdependencies we have in organizations, what we call third-party risk. And of course, that's definitely something to look at if you are a management company, that all your partner suppliers, whatever relations you have, are also adequately protected, because otherwise you get spillover effects, and that would negatively impact your organization then.
That's a good point.
So we still have one question to go for Mike and one for Koen. So let's.
And now it's the tough question.
Now the hard questions.
Or
Okay.
we like to
Now-
call them
now-
crystal ball.
Crystal ball,
the
because
crystal ball.
they are more futuristic, or more about the future.
And
We
it's
lo-
not just
we
because
love
I'm
those.
bald.
Yeah,
So
probably, yes.
shall I go with the
Yes,
first
of
one?
course.
Okay, so as the fund industry recovers from the COVID pandemic, what trends or reactions do you think will be long-lasting and reflected in the next edition, which will be in 2 years?
In a year now, so
In a year.
2022.
Yes.
So every 2
Yes.
years.
Okay.
That's a good point. I guess I can make it up, right? Because it's just my own prediction of what I think it
Exactly.
is.
Imagine you
I
have
mean,
a crystal ball
yeah.
in front of
So
you, and
I think our way of working has changed forever. I don't see us going back to 100% being at the office. I think there's some other issues that we need to consider from a personal perspective of from a tax point of view, especially here in Luxembourg because we have so many cross-border workers. But I don't see us going back to everybody in one place.
Yeah.
So you have to deal with that, and particularly as Koen mentioned, from an endpoint perspective, you have lots of different endpoints now that are connecting to the network in various different ways that are not as secure as what they were if you were in the office.
Exactly.
So I think that's something that we'll have to deal with going forward, which I think that's probably the most relevant for our discussion today. I think there's some other trends coming out of that. The biggest trend I see from a fund perspective is probably ESG, from a positive growth perspective in terms of managers taking that on, launching new products, reaching new investors. So I think cyber, ESG. Well, not just cyber, but the way that we work. Right? I think that's probably will be a lasting change.
And Mike, the board members you meet regularly or sometimes over the year, do you think they are tech savvies? Do you feel they are,
They've gotten a heck of a lot better over the past year. Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah. Some are still not. I mean, they still like their paper. Very few and far between now. Especially because the board packs are enormous and they're growing. So I think the last year has been or last year and a half has been a crash course
Already.
for the directors
crash course
in technology. Yeah.
Okay, and that takes us to the last question for Koen. Is precisely about that. Is now that we are probably, very likely not getting back to all the time at the office times. So what would be your predictions for the next couple of years when it comes to the use of technology at the board? Am I right? That's the question. I'm confusing the question.
yes, you are.
That's but it's something like that.
Yes.
I think I agree with Michael. They have to increase their capabilities on technology, but at the same time, I strongly believe that C-levels and CEOs of the future will be more tech savvy. We've seen a few in the past. I don't know if you follow the news, but the CEO of Adidas at this time used to be the CEO of ServiceNow, an IT company. So that already gives a good indication, and I expect that CIOs of today might be CEOs of tomorrow. That is definitely something I see. I also see that cybersecurity is something we cannot neglect anymore, that's for sure. And in that retrospect, I also expect people like myself and my peers appearing in boards on an advisory basis, not on a permanent basis, just to give a strategy and a vision to what you can expect as a board for your own organization. Now, that's, of course, all the boring stuff. The technology part and the attacking part is definitely the most interesting one, at least when I look through my own lenses of cybersecurity. We expect a lot more attacks due to more incorporation of IoT devices, Internet of Things or Internet of Everything. And that can go very far, from connected cars to microphones that are connected, cameras, whatever. These create, of course, a more complex surface of attack. And at the same time, when we are working at home, these devices are floating around this device, which is owned by the company. So it can be a dangerous situation. I also believe, like Michael, that we will not go to a normal situation like we knew before. People will continue to work remotely, and they will demand more flexibility in that remote working, meaning that it's not necessarily from their home, but from a second residence they might have, or when they are leaving on holiday with the family, combining that work with, or that period with working and holiday. That, of course, creates a lot of other issues around cybersecurity. In that regards, I expect more problems of stolen devices, perhaps, things like that. And data sovereignty is definitely another aspect we will face here in Europe. This due to the cloud adoption. Europe is strong on having control over its own data, and we need something for that in cloud adoption for the future.
And just recall crypto assets as well. So Mike is laughing, but it's coming.
Yeah, it's here.
It's undeniable. It's here.
Yeah. So I think from a fund perspective, yeah. So it is. There are funds that are being created that either invest in companies who are issuing tokens. So I think you have to split sort of the blockchain versus crypto assets. There are companies that are using the blockchain for various different things. So biggest application from a fund perspective, TA, transfer agency. Also, from transfer agency, that's where I've seen it used most recently. Crypto assets, yes, definitely. I think it is a trend that we will probably continue to see, despite of what has happened in China recently with the banning of all the mining, and I think all of the bad press that Bitcoin has gotten around the consumption of energy, which I think is probably a bit misleading, because most of the energy is in the mining, and from a Bitcoin perspective, I think I can't remember how much, 90% of the coins have already been mined, so take that for what it is. But just another trend I was thinking about as we were talking from a risk perspective is the new investors, right? So the younger generations that are going to be investing in financial products, they are going to demand some sort of digital space, right? So they're going to go through their apps, through the computers, through however it is. You'll probably, like my kids, will probably never go speak to a financial advisor in an office somewhere. Probably. I mean, that's probably never going to happen. So from a brand reputation perspective, somebody taking over your website and or taking over your Twitter feed, that can have massive impacts to your organization. So there's all kinds of things that you would need to think about as your company evolves, and it really focuses around cybersecurity, cyber risk.
When was the last time you went to the bank branch, a physical one?
Me?
Yes.
Well, it was 1.5 years when I moved to Luxembourg, and I needed to open an account. But that was the only time.
I think it's 6 years ago was my case.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Thanks a lot. It was a very, very cool conversation, I think. Do you have still any other questions?
No. That's all. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share?
No, I think it was a good conversation. That was,
Okay.
Maybe some tough questions for you next time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fair enough.
That's fair. So this is Tech Talk, technology made simple.
Over a cup of coffee,
or what drink do you prefer anyway?
As a Belgian beer, of course.
Of course.
I'm going with that. Yeah.
I would say beer. Bourbon. No.
Belgian beer.
Belgian beer.
That's
okay.
a good choice.
Okay, and let's continue enjoying this awesome summer in Luxembourg.
That was so sarcastic, I hope.
Of course. I mean, it has been raining for the last 3 weeks. It's just Thanks a lot. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all for today. This is Tech Talk, technology made simple over a cup of coffee. Thank you for listening, and until the next episode.